There was an event. It never got off the ground, but there was a promoter starting to put the pieces in place. And the event was going to be called Brotherly Love, MMA event. Mark and Matt Hughes, brothers, were going to fight each other. The Sarah brothers were going to fight each other. The main event was going to be the Shamrocks, Ken versus Frank. This never happened, and I'm very glad that it didn't. I don't know if the promoter just couldn't get the rest of the pieces in place because he never went on to do a show of any kind. It might have stopped dead at the promoter, but what my real hope is, he couldn't get the brothers to agree to it. Because that does not feel right. To fight your brother, to know for sure who the bigger, tougher batter was, to go to holidays together, to go through life just for a few bucks in the entertainment of a drunken audience, man, it did not feel right. I would not have been part of that audience. And MMA was very hard to come by back then. UFC was doing 6 events a year. Pride was doing 5 events a year. The WEC, that acronym had not even been created yet. Strike Force wasn't a thing. Belts. It's a very different time where we were so starved for MMA, and we still didn't want that one. And it wasn't just me. We all pushed back. And I'm not even proclaiming for you. It wasn't very compelling. It was very interesting, and here's why. If Big Brother and Little Brother get into it, let's just say it's in the living room. Big Brother and Little Brother get into it. Big Brother had better win. Everybody needs Big Brother to win. Not just Big Brother. Little Brother needs Big Brother to win. Mom and Dad and everybody there's an order, but it doesn't always go that way. And the Shamrocks was very, very interesting at that time. And it was Little Brother Frank who wasn't playing along. He was not willing to concede it was to Big Brother. I dealt with this in my family. It was my cousins. My cousins who were my heroes, Corey and Ty. They were both wrestlers. Ty was 2 years older. They were the same weight class. And 2 years older doesn't matter what you see high school and college because that's separated by 4 years. So they would enter a tournament and they would make the finals. Week after week, they would make the finals. My uncle, their father, never let them wrestle, not once. And I don't think they even flipped a coin. I've heard of that happening before with, hey, let's flip a coin. I don't think there was even a coin flip. Older brother wins, the end. I like that my uncle did it that way. That was the way to do it. And if my cousins would have wrestled, even all these years ago, in just a wrestling match, right? It doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. And I got to bring you that. I'm giving this as a precursor because I've never had a feeling of awkward until last night. Here's what's up. Good friends, teammates, George Masvidal, Dustin Poirier, have one thing in common, which is they could both do blockbuster business with Nate Diaz. They both have a rightful claim to Nate. And to remind you guys how this all happened, when we had the BMF and we got Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz, to remind you the month leading into that, Masvidal was no part of that card. The BMF acronym did not exist. Dana did not have a belt he was going to put up. He had Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz. And something happened. I can't remember it well enough, but the fact that Nate went on tells me it was something on Dustin's side. And they never got that one back together. So Dustin obviously has a claim to Nate Diaz. Very fair one. Masvidal sold out the Mecca in a title match attended by the most powerful man on earth and the most powerful man in Hollywood. It was a big night. The BMF night at Madison Square Garden was a big night. So Masvidal has a claim to Nate Diaz. And if you guys remember, that fight got stopped after 3 rounds of fighting. And Nate's entire claim from that night until any other night was, I do my best work a little bit later, and I had that taken from me. That story works. That fight absolutely works. So, don't forget, Masvidal and Poirier are teammates. Poirier, for the most part, is not a 170-pounder, so you cannot put this on Masvidal as stealing a fight from a friend. Nate fights at 170, and Masvidal has a rightful claim to Nate. But Poirier has made it pretty clear he does want the Nate fight, and he is thinking about going to 170. So nobody's done anything wrong. But if they go into a public campaign to get that match, one of them gets it, and the other one just shows up at practice the next game and goes, what do I have to do? What's next for me? Why'd you take my match? That's between them and whatever their relationship is. But George Masvidal, who has a fight, publicly has now started adding fuel to the fire of himself versus Diaz. Poirier puts out a tweet, and I can't remember because Poirier, it ended up getting deleted, but he was not happy. It was like a frown face emoji or like an angry emoji. It wasn't in relation to anything. He did not tag anybody else. I don't even know for sure that it was tied to Masvidal. I'm only telling you the time frame. Masvidal called out Nate, and Poirier put a unhappy face. They might have nothing to do with each other, but what if they do? What if they do? Things do get a little bit awkward, right? Things are great for Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz gets some mega match, and he's looking for a match anyway, and he's got two good options. Does he want the rematch? Get the BML revived? Does he want some fresh blood? Settle the business with Poirier? Nate's in a wonderful spot, but what do those two do? And I saw this one other time. At Team Quest, we did not have that same camaraderie to our fellow teammates. We all helped one another. It was very brotherly for sure, but we all had different managers. And if you were going in different directions that happened to be the same direction as your teammate, every man for himself, however it worked out. We didn't have a clear code in place, and that even included if we were to run into each other. And we did several times, and nobody batted an eye. Dan Henderson and Matt Lindland went at it twice in one day. It was Greco-Roman wrestling, but they did it nonetheless. I've had to take on Matt Lindland. Just sharing with you, it was anyone, anywhere, anytime. And there was going to be no hard feelings, and that's the way it was. Until it wasn't, here's what happened. Nate Quarry gets the world title fight against Rich Franklin. Matt Lindland, they were teammates. Same weight class, same organization of UFC. Matt Lindland was ranked number 1 in the world. Matt Lindland was ranked number 1 in the world and couldn't get the opportunity, and the opportunity went to Nate. Now, I got to tell you, when I walked into practice that day after reading this news, I had never thought about it. It never crossed my mind. I remember thinking, this is awesome. We got to buckle down. We got to plan together for Nate. We got Rich Franklin coming up. Shot to win a it never even crossed my mind until those two in sparring met up. Now, I was only in the room, and I was right by him, but I did not see it. They were within 4 feet of me. I had my back to it, but I remember the late, great Robert Follis having to go over and separate them. Whatever, I heard shouting, and I heard Robert Follis come in and break them up, and one went this way and one went that way. And that's very unusual for Nate Quarry. Not quite as unusual for Matt Lindland, but a bit of a surprise because Matt owned the gym. Thus, Nate would be Matt's student. So I don't know what happened, though. I can't tell you who was right or who was wrong. I can just tell you when it was done, and I talked to Coach Follis, that's what it was about. It was predicated on something about Nate getting the opportunity while Matt was ranked number 1. Which one of them got angry and what happened after that? All I could hear was the shouting. I'm just sharing with you that's a very real thing. And if Dustin's frowny face had anything to do with Masvidal's call out of Diaz, see the problem? It's the potential for a problem. And I don't have the right answer on that, by the way, guys. I know the code. I know how the locker room, I know man code. I know the streets. I don't know that one. And the only reason I don't is I have to do what you guys have to do, which is how did you come up? If you're part of the scrap pack, they've already got all that worked out. I came from Team Quest. We worked it out too by saying we're not going to work it out. Go get the best you can, and we'll be here to help you every day at 3. That was it. I'm not arguing for you that that's the best way. I have some real jealousy of the way the Diazes and Gilbert and Jake Shields go about their bond together. It just wasn't the one that we had at Quest. And I think most people are like Quest. I think that the scrap pack is probably very unique with that brotherhood and that bonding. I think most guys are like it. Here's where we train. Here's where we practice. You can trust me. I can trust you. I'll be here for you, and you're going to be here for me. And that's as far as this agreement goes. You've got your managers and your career, and you're going to drive it. Go get what's biggest and best for you. But just know I'm going to do the same thing. There's only so many weight classes. And ATT has ended up majorly jammed up at 170. I mean, they were running the belt for a while. Lawler, which goes to T-Wood, teammates. You got Hector Lombard, who's going to be a rough night for anybody in that same weight class for a period of time. Then you got Masvidal, who's got a belt of his own. And now all of a sudden you've got Poirier going into the same weight class. You, of course, know about Colby Covington in that weight and the fact that he even had to leave. So they're going to have this problem. They're going to have to work this out. This isn't going to be the first time, and it's not going to be the last time. A similar thing happened with Team Miletich at one point. Pat Miletich, who owned the gym and was the head coach, had a fight. The 170-pound belt was Pat's belt. And Miletich, everybody fell into line. That's Pat's belt. Something happened where Pat couldn't compete, and Matt Hughes, the student, gets called in to take on Carlos Newton. Matt beats Carlos. Matt grabs the belt and goes on to have a Hall of Fame career. But now all of a sudden, Pat's left out on left field wearing a catcher's mitt. Pat can't come in as the coach and take on his student. He can't call out his student. He can't pursue the same goals and dreams. Pat handled it like a leader. He left the weight class. More recent story would be Daniel Cormier and Cain Velasquez. Daniel was on the coaching staff. He was paid. He was hired. He is mentoring Cain. Cain grabbed the belt while Daniel was completely undefeated, and Daniel he left the weight class. He didn't know what else to do. I had no problem with that. No problem with any of this. I don't think anybody's wrong here. I'm just bringing to your attention that things can get awkward very quick. And much like brotherly love that didn't feel right, it's not going to feel right if Poirier and Masvidal point their guns at one another. I don't think that's going to happen. But before we get to that point, somebody within that gym needs to sit everybody down, get a cup of coffee, sit and talk it out. What are we going to do? Then you're never wrong, because it could come down. I'm going to do my best to get Nate. I'm going to do my best to get Nate. Great. Get up and walk out of the room. But now we all know. Now nobody gets offended. Nobody gets their feelings hurt. Everybody knows what's going to happen. Poirier, what weight class are you? Are you a 70-pounder? I know Poirier's a 70-pounder. I want to see some fresh pair. Oh, my goodness. I could think of some matches I want to see Dustin Poirier have. But I don't have that answer yet. Get together. Talk it out. Let us know. Pretty curious over here.